the airport to the hotel, to which I can't, there's no early check-in. I get to the hotel. I have to pay for an early night. So I have to pay the hotel to stay there for an hour and 15 minutes. And then I get a phone call from the airport. We found your bag. It's in the airport now. It came in on a later flight. I had to go back to the airport, pick up my bag, and then from the airport to the convention center. So for my first 2 hours in Dallas cost me over $300.
Shoo-wee.
Just going back and forth. So I said, I'm not doing this again. Next time I'm friggin' driving. Screw that shit. What are you gonna do? Oh, well, we're live anyway. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us for this week's edition of the Weekly Roundtable for what is this? May 24th, 2024. I'm a co-founder of the Liberty First Foundation and co-host of the show, Frank Range Report Johnson. And to my left is Michael Marshall, co-founder of the Liberty First Foundation and constitutional expert. Below me, as always, is Michael Vasquez, Dragon of the Bronx, New York's only independent journalist. And I'm starting to believe America's only independent journalist.
I'd vouch for that.
Yeah, I'm starting to vouch for that, too. And one of our favorite guests, Dale Grimm, is coming in. He is the Grim Liberty on Rumble. So look him up, check him out. How's everybody doing this evening?
Doing well.
Good.
Pretty good.
Good.
A little tired.
All right, to everybody in audience, I apologize for my lack of presence last week. I could not get a Wi-Fi signal in Dallas, Texas, no matter where I was or what I did, and then the Wi-Fi signal in the hotel, which shall remain nameless, did not work. The technicians just could not figure out how to get the Wi-Fi operating. And when you're in the K. Bailey Hutchinson Convention Center with 130,000 other people all trying to get bandwidth, you're not getting any.
I know that feeling. Kind of had it yesterday.
So what were you
doing? Time at the most.
What were you doing yesterday that you had a problem with bandwidth?
I was. Some people may have noticed. I was at the Trump Bronx rally, and I was there from 12 noon until right after it finished, which was about 8-ish. So about a good 8 hours I was out there at the event. Got interviewed by Daily Mail, I was on video of Newsmax. They had me in the background as I was covering some of the live events. But I was actually interviewed by Daily Mail and a couple of others. But Daily Mail actually published it. Matter of fact, I think I have. Do I have it for you? Let me show. Yep, I do have it. Let me show you guys, because I kind of find it whoops, wrong one. I found it interesting that the Daily Mail. I gave her a 5-minute quote. Someone's going to bring that up because it's not popping up. I don't know why.
All right, I'll lay it
There
down
we go.
on the stage.
All right. So we got a 5-minute quote that I provided to the Daily Mail. She chopped it down. She chopped my answer she asked, one of the final questions she asked me was, would you vote for Joe Biden? Now, she took 2 different questions of mine. She puts me in the middle of her video. And then at the very end, to finish the video, she has me with the final statement. And of course, she's willing to promote me and put my face right up front as one of the main features of her article. But she left out, why wouldn't you vote for Joe Biden? I'm like, well, look at all of his policies. Everything has failed, including overseas, where he abandoned 70,000 Americans. That's Ukraine, Afghanistan, that's Sudan last year, Haiti right now, and of course, the Americans that were killed by Hamas, 34 Americans killed by Hamas, 22 of them that have been tortured every day since October 7th, and some of them may be dead. I would never vote for him. And she got the last, so she chopped out that part because it seems to be too spicy, too political, and she only added in, I would never vote for Biden. Still, it is coverage from the UK with me speaking. So, but she didn't quote me in her article. she doesn't quote either what I said in the video nor what I said to her that she cut out of the video, which I thought was kind of interesting. But if I remember correctly, Sarah isn't exactly neutral in a lot of her reporting. So,
Oh, you don't
not
say.
too surprised.
But I'm curious though. Trump had a rally in the Bronx. How is
Yeah.
that? How is that even ethically possible? I thought the Bronx is the haven of leftist thinking. That there are no conservatives or Republicans or people who oppose the Biden regime in the Bronx. Aren't you all supposed to be a homogenous group of like-minded,
Now,
like-raced individuals?
Well, if you listen to Kathy Hochul or Representative Richie Torres of the New York 15th, AOC of the New York 14th District, there's a couple of Democrats that said, no, there couldn't possibly. Even John Leguizamo today on Twitter is like, New York is not for Trump. It's not for Republicans. You're not welcome here. Let me show you. Now, I have.
Well, I thought Hochul just said there were no people there. There was just clowns.
Well, yeah, they said that as well. I think I have a nice crowd shot. I had over over 1,000 photo images. Excuse me. I took a lot of I live streamed a couple times throughout, and then about an hour before Trump came on, when we had all the speakers, then somehow almost everybody's internet suddenly shut down, which is amazing. I was literally in the middle of a live stream and the internet shut down and no more sound. No one could hear anything. And it's pretty weird because I think that was when we started seeing a lot of reporting from the mainstream news media. So I don't know if it was because so many people were streaming at the same time, although we already had been, or if it was because the mainstream news media wanted to try and limit the number of people having coverage and taking away from their viewers, which I think is more likely to be the reason why we had a bunch of individuals with their various cell phones and equipment being shut down all at the same time. Midstream. But let me show you this image. This is one of several stills that I have. And I'll show you guys. Oh, it won't let me show you this. Here, do it this way. So, you got it?
Yep.
Okay. So, this is just one image. I'm still working through it. Like I said, there's over 1,000 images, and I have about, I can't show it to you, but I have about 200 that I'm working through to see which ones are some of the best. This is just one image. This is about 2.5 hours before Trump spoke. So this is about 4:30, 5 o'clock. So there's still more people coming into the event as we were speaking. Do you notice the crowd? Do you notice how many people were in that crowd? And that's just one shot of this. Let me see if I got. This is another shot of the crowd. Some of the kids were, while they were taking some time out, they played some Uno. You can see Andrew Giuliani is there. I've interviewed him in the past. He's there. You can see some of the news media. Did you notice? Look at this guy's face. This is the mood of the news media when they're not on camera.
That's the guy I noticed more of anything in that particular shot, was that pissed off looking puss.
Yeah. Everyone else is fine. He's pissed off. Let me see. We've got great. I like this shot. I really like this shot. Guy with his dog having a great time. Here's another news media. This is a guy from Fox News, Jesse Waters' program. Here's this guy. He's pissed off. I have several photos of him. When the camera's not directly on his face, he looks like he's just annoyed talking to this woman. She's happy to be speaking. He's annoyed.
I saw that woman on Newsmax.
Yep. A lot of people, a couple of cameras were on her.
I recognize the hair. She gave quite an impassioned plea as to why she's supporting Trump and not Biden.
One of the reasons
supporting Trump would just as as clear and are well articulated as her reasons why she's opposing Biden. Where when you interview Biden voters, they're voting for Biden because he's not Trump. But when you talk to Trump voters, they're voting for Trump because he is Trump.
Exactly. Because of his policies and what he is,
Right.
what he did do. Because
What he's going to do. Yeah.
yeah. I mean, people keep forgetting. He has a track record. We know all these fear mongering. Well, if he gets in, he's going to do this. If he gets in, this will happen. You said that back in 2019, 2015, 2016. You said that before he got elected. None of that came true. We already have a track record. We have no reason to believe it would be anything different. But
to be fair, a
Mhm.
lot of what they said was going to happen if Trump became president did happen. But that happened under Joe Biden.
Well, yes. The fears they had for Trump are realized under Biden, but Trump actually was great. And again, here's another shot. I had just gotten through the this this crowd you see in the background. So I got there at noon. There were about 200 people in line at noon. This is right after there was a big shower, thunderstorm came through, and that probably diminished the number of people in the crowd because they were afraid it was going to rain. So I got there and there's 200 people already online. Then this is about 4:30 and we're going through. This crowd is at least 2,000 to 3,000 people. It is estimated, I've heard estimates that there were 5,000 to 6,000 people that ultimately did get in to be seen. Remember, Hochul said every single one of these people, they're clowns. We heard from Richie Torres and AOC saying no one's going to support. John Leguizamo, they're not going to support. No one's going to show up. There are Republicans, conservatives, libertarians. They don't exist in New York. Everyone's a Democrat. Look at the number of people here. Look at this crowd that you see. Hey, friend. And I want you, and look at, policewoman knows she's being taken a picture of. This is the mood almost all the time. Everyone's relatively happy, peaceful, enjoying themselves. You don't see this at the left-leaning protests. They don't have rallies. They have protests, which usually break down into violent actions on a regular basis. We have thousands of people here. There's no violence. Nothing got destroyed. Everything is clean. The officers are bored out of their mind because they got nothing to do. That's not happening at the protest. And I'm told, because we didn't hear, there was literally one individual while I was online that had a incident. One Biden supporter was arguing with one Trump supporter, just one. They got split up almost immediately. No other Biden supporters came on by. None of them were shouting. Supposedly they were having a protest. No one could hear them. We never saw them. When I was leaving the event, didn't run into any of them. I don't know how many there were. I saw one of the news coverage photos, and it showed, I don't know, about 24 people. This is the crowd. So they got 2,000 people to complain. This is who showed up here. Yeah, I think Trump is going to do far, far better in New York than what was initially mentioned. And you hear interview after interview, people had reasons to vote for Trump. They were happy to vote for Trump. They were angry with the fact that Biden has failed. And literally, he's failed in every aspect of the presidency. There's nothing that you can point to, and everyone tries. There's nothing you can point to that's been a success, which is why even Democrats over the last 2 years now, poll after poll, 90% of all polls say that Trump's going to win. It'll be close, but he's going to win. And we'll get into Ohio in a little bit, but I'm just trying to give you guys a little bit. And again, this is just a little bit of a flavor. One of the individuals, again, notice smiles. Everyone's smiling. Photo after photo. You know who's not smiling? This is someone who's not in. They're watching the event. This is, by the way, the argument. This is the guy in the white is the Trump supporter. That black woman, you can just barely see her head over there. She's the Biden supporter. So you can see exactly who is who. That's the Biden supporter. This is the Trump supporter. Guy watching, a couple of people. The media flocked at the time. This is about 12:30. So well over 7.5 hours before Trump showed up. And media flocked to this to try and say, ooh, there is going to be an incident. See, it's not, the Trump supporters are out of their mind. They're all right. No, it was one guy, and they zoomed in. A lot of the news media, and you don't see it in this picture, but there's a couple of cameras off to the left that are using zoomed in, so you can't see how many people are actually behind. This guy's all by himself. This is why I'm the wide shot I have of it. You're not seeing it. And I have video of the event as well with a wide shot, and you'll see he's all by himself. There's no crowd. It wasn't people rushing over. No, it wasn't the violent at all. Let me see. Do I have any other images?
So on social media right now, the mainstream media is circulating a photograph basically taken by drone that has been purported to be 6.5 hours before the majority of the crowd was coming. Is that one of the Hodge twins?
No. This guy is a very popular. He's a 27-year-old. I don't know if he's an independent. He used to be a Democrat. His name is Lou Valentino. I've interviewed him last week in the Bronx when he was saying he was going to support Donald Trump, and he showed up again. He's very popular. Because of that he stepped out last week to say he supports Trump and young people should do it now as well. He has since been on Fox News. He's been on MSNBC. He's been on he's been going around the mainstream media, getting a lot of interviews. So he's talking to some of the news media here. So that's another image of him.
Sorry, I got distracted. My question was that there's an image circulating online that shows about 6.5 hours purportedly before Trump shows up. That is showing a crowd of maybe about 3,000 people.
Yeah,
but the estimates of the people actually in attendance was bordering 30 to 40,000. Did you see any of that?
Okay.
I was inside, so I saw several thousand people, which is why I'm trying to give you an idea of the feeling of being in the crowd.
Yeah.
And you can see
I've got a couple of shots here, okay, of what Gall's talking about.
Okay, let me make sure I show you guys. So, and that's when Trump's actually speaking.
Oh, wow. You're actually pretty close to the stage, too. That's good.
Pretty much. This is shooting over people's heads. So you can see it was half the shots I couldn't get because there's someone with a hand or a sign or something that was in the way. So it blurred it.
You got to get an 8-foot monopole.
As you can see. So, I got kid with the fuzzy hair kept blurring out my focus. But this is just giving you an idea of the crowds that you're seeing there. So, I just wanted to share that. But go ahead. What you got, Mike?
Okay, so the Daily Beast is claiming that there wasn't that many people there. Okay, and this is supposedly when Trump was supposedly talking. And this is from ABC 7, and you can see the time is 11:09.
Well, neither of those are correct. I can tell you neither of those are correct. In particular, one of the things, and firsthand, and yes, I know which drone that was. There was two drones that were up and 4 helicopters up, and we were watching them. I can tell you why. One of the reasons with this, you're saying it's 11:09. That's not possible.
That's what the time stamp down at the bottom is.
That's
11:09.
So,
that's 75 degrees.
75 degrees. No one was in the park. I was there at 12. The news media wasn't allowed. What you're seeing, and you can see there's a problem with this image, because if you're looking at it right where it says ABC News, you see that little blue section there?
Right here?
Yep. That's the section that's supposed to be for all of the news media do you notice you can't see the cameras? You can't see the news media. I showed you. You just saw the images where there were dozens upon dozens of cameras, and there's a back area too, but you can't see that. It's ill-defined. You can't make that out, and you should be easily able to see multiple cameras and the staging that they're on. So it looks like it's been blurred out.
If we go back to the other one, okay.
And you notice again, it's still,
see if I
you can
can-
see it a little better, but it's blurred out.
Get this up here a little bit better. But
You
see,
see
you
how
don't even see many cameras, and you'd think if
see how
Trump was
blurred it is?
actually speaking, you would see all kinds of cameras going.
Okay, this has been doctored. Look how blurred it is. Look how blurred these the individuals on the wings, on the left wing, the right wing that are surrounding it. Look
Mhm.
how blurred those individuals are. That you're not really seeing individual bodies. You're seeing one big mass. That
Well, here's
doesn't look
something else. You see right here how these
the ground.
right. You
It
look
looks
at the
like
ground.
Photoshop.
That looks like it's been photoshopped.
Yeah,
And I
blending.
would not be surprised if it wasn't Photoshop, because being at the event, and by the way, I'm a little bit, I can't really show you. I can't, I know where I was standing relative to this photo, and you can't really see it. But that does not, for someone who was actually at the event, no, that does not look accurate. And again, I have live streams where I'm showing the crowd from above the top of people's heads. You can see those numbers don't seem
right.
to be correct.
All right, but let's just put this into perspective for just a minute.
Sure.
Let's just say that is an accurate representation of the crowd that was there, and that's
Right.
Trump there speaking on the stage at that very moment that photo was taken. You notice not a video, but it's a photo. They don't play a video.
Right.
And drones are capable of doing video, but they only did a photo. But let's put that aside and say that that's a 100% accurate photograph. It's still Donald Trump in the Bronx.
Yeah.
Joe Biden couldn't get a crowd like that if he was in the middle of Battery Park.
Well,
Well, not only
here's-
couldn't he won't, because the last time he was in New York, which is the same day that a police officer who was gunned down doing his job by repeat felons who were released because of social justice reform, he didn't go to see the family. He didn't go to the wake. He was half a mile away. He instead went with Obama and Clinton to a fundraiser and raised $25 million. So Joe Biden, when he goes, he's more than happy to get $25 million, and that's only 100 people. But to actually, he won't even try to go
but what I'm saying,
anywhere in New York.
Even if he did, he couldn't put a group like that together.
No, he.
What
Even
was
if he
the-
paid photos.
Michael, what was the weather like? Was it overcast?
No, there were some clouds, but it was pretty bright and it was very sunny. And
Okay, so I'm looking at these crowds and
shadow.
right. Okay, Trump spoke at 6:30.
A little bit later, but yeah.
Okay. And this is supposedly at 11:09. And if you look at the shadows around people, if they are there, they're very, very short. They're not long shadows like late afternoon.
Well, it would make sense if it was 11:09 in the afternoon, but the event, the sun was
11:09 morning.
yeah, but the sun was setting. It was after 6. The sun was lower in the sky.
Right. Like I said, I'm not
and we
seeing
had
any long
shadows.
shadows.
Yeah, and again, I have live stream.
Anywhere.
You can see the shadows coming in and the setting sun while Trump was speaking. There's live stream of that. So
All the shadows are short. So it looks, I mean, even looking over here by these trees, the shadows are not long extended out shadows. So the
Yeah,
sun's high. So this was taken about midday.
Look, even if they had the camera
So
set to Pacific time, so add 3 hours, even add 4 hours just for it, that would make it 3. No one's in the park at that time. Their time it's impossible. And this is the credibility of ABC News on the line.
Literally
hours before Trump got there.
So what?
There had to be people in the park.
Not in that section. No.
But
no
that
one,
show,
no one was let into that area. The first people that were let in that area were the camera crews for the mainstream media. That was at 12:30. At 11:09, that area was empty. Only thing that was there was the stands, the press area with its stands for the news media to set up the cameras. That was it. That and Secret Service. That was
I
it.
just want to know the timestamp. The timestamp that's on the photo, is that at the 11 p.m. news or is that in the mid-morning news, 11 a.m.?
Hal is saying that was 11:09, as in the new newscast was at news at 11.
And let's
then
give
they
them
should have had a tag.
Okay,
Hal.
but
News
even
media,
we'll go back to the original image.
Well, wait a minute.
Okay.
One second. Hal, to answer your one thing about that, when the news media is reporting something and they have their timestamp on and they know it's not representing the live, they will have a stamp on there that says recorded earlier or recorded live, or they'll say recorded at whatever time, so as to not create this confusion. That is the credibility of ABC News on the line. If that is what you're saying, they did it at 11:09 p.m., then they have failed as a news agency to do the bare minimum on their reporting. So again, they still get the hit on this. But go ahead, Mike.
Now, okay, if this person standing on the stage is supposedly Trump, right? The press would not be all back here.
Actually, yes. Most of them actually would be. Yes, they are. I've covered Trump. This was the 4th or 5th time I've actually done live coverage of Trump. And there is a media section where most of the media who have cameras are going to be at, so they're staged up and they're going to be there. Now, what you can't see is that there is also media around the edges, and one camera to the left bottom is actually there was a camera
right
there.
Here?
No. In the middle of the crowd.
They would be using zoom lenses to get the stage.
Yeah,
they'd be above the people and zooming in to get the stage. But the nature of the article is that the way this is being portrayed is that this is during Trump's speech. Based on the length of the shadows and everything, and it's in this photograph, this is an early photo that was broadcast as the final image. That is incorrect.
I have photos of who was up on the stage.
Your picture of Trump when he's speaking.
What?
Bring up your picture of Trump when he's speaking.
Sure. Hang on. Give me 1 second, because I gotta share this a little.
And my thinking is that because they're presenting the early image as the final image, they're trying to spin the narrative that there wasn't a lot of support, though there was support.
Now, these are the images I have that I've been working on. So which one are you thinking of?
I'm trying to get a feel of who was on stage with Trump, if anybody.
Nobody.
Okay.
All right. Well, here, look at the
nobody.
Hold on.
Depending on which part. At the end, he did have people come up one after.
It doesn't matter because there's only one person on the stage. Look at where Trump is here. The teleprompters are directly in front of him. That's indicating that that's the front of the stage. The trees behind him are all being lit from that direction. Sun sets in the west. This is a west to east view of Trump at the park.
Yeah, sun's to our west. It's to the left on the photo.
Right. What time did he show up there? 6 p.m. or something like that?
A little bit after, but yeah.
All right, a little bit after 6, sun's going down. Sun's in the west, aiming towards east. The front of all of these trees are being illuminated by sunlight. You can see the back of the teleprompters are reflective. Everybody's hands and everybody's shadow, you can see the sun is behind you. Sun is aiming.
You can see the shadows in here.
Okay, so now look at the aerial photograph you see who's standing on the stage, and then look at where the sunlight is on the trees. If the trees are not illuminated from the front, that's not a picture of Trump because it's taken at a different time.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you can even tell that. Look at the glare on Trump's forehead.
Look how bright that is. That is extremely bright. Now, you said there was a thunderstorm earlier in the day.
And it was overcast at the time.
And it was overcast. By the time Trump got there, it was already clear and bright out with the sun beaming in that direction. The photo that was standing is probably one of a multitude of 20 speakers that will all say that could be Brian Donaldson on that stage for all we can tell.
I know it wasn't Donaldson.
That's why they didn't do a live video from the drone, but only a still from that altitude of about 3,000 feet, so you couldn't tell who was on the stage at that time. But we do know now, looking at where the sun is directed, what time this would be at about.
Yeah, and you can see the shadow on the guy's arms. If you're looking at the arms,
and if the photograph that was taken from the sky, from the drone, doesn't show the trees directly behind him, including the Dutch elm tree that's to the right of the president right there, being very illuminated. I know it's a Dutch elm because I had one in front of my house in Brooklyn the whole time I lived there. There's only about 30 of them in the entire city of New York because they all suffer from something called Dutch elm disease. You can look that up. But if you look at the picture from the sky, you can see, look how dim all the front of those trees are. Dim. Same coloration on the front as there is on the back. There is no sun aiming in that direction.
Very flat light.
Right. There's flat light. The sun, or every one of those shadows, every one of the areas behind those trees would be blackened out by the shade of the trees themselves. 6 o'clock, Trump is speaking. Every one of these people would have a long cast shadow going from the front of the stage towards the back of the stage. The stage would be backlit, would be shadowed.
If this was supposedly after Trump had gotten through speaking, okay, you'd see these people starting to leave. And you don't see it. Everybody's facing inward.
Well, as long as Trump was on the stage, no one was moving. But
this
when
is
Trump finished,
this is clearly
that would there'd be even more shadow because when Trump finished speaking, you're talking about 7:30, 7:45. So you had even less sun than when he started, and there was even more shadow and more obvious shadow everywhere. So again,
so our point is that this is not a true representation of the people that were there. It was of the full extent of the people that were there when Trump was speaking. This is an early photograph of the early people
started showing up.
Right.
Well, I don't know. Something is wrong with this image because it does not seem to be accurate to the time frame. And from my lived experience, firsthand, being there and seeing the crowd and being
all it suggests is that this was taken soon after you were there. So, but the narrative that's being spun online is that this was the totality of everyone that was there, and that's not the case. Right, because this was too early in the day. Clearly, it's too early in the day.
Something's wrong with that. And even with that, count this, and I bet you there's several thousand people there. Even in this photo, let's assume, give AB whomever the benefit of the doubt, and if they were to actually try and do and I don't think it's possible because I don't think this is a valid photo, and it's been blurred too much. But if someone were to actually try and do so, I guarantee you're going to have well over 3,000 people, probably closer to 5,000 people at that event, which in and of itself is massively significant because the Bronx is the bluest, most democratic county in the United States. We were told specifically that he would get nobody to show up. And we know for a fact that there was a campaign from the governor, from members of Congress, and from entertainers saying, don't show up, don't show support. And they showed up anyway. Hi, Jan. By the way, Jan is the one who figured out that I was on Newsmax. One of the, she was pointed out I was on one of them. So it was pretty cool.
All right. Well, obviously, this photo is taken with one of the warm-up people, not Trump himself. This is probably between 3:30 and 4 o'clock.
No, it had to be later. It had to be somewhere around 5.
Well,
that's
then
when people started speaking. 5.
All right. Well, it sure is shading him. The sunlight don't match up. The daytime don't match up. Shadow lines don't match up. Eyewitness reports don't match up. And you're not the only person who took photographs that I've been looking at.
Yeah, and it doesn't match up to what you're seeing here.
No,
this is not accurate.
There's too many things that just don't apply. They're not right.
Are we surprised though? Really?
No.
that's the funny thing is like we're not surprised by this. This is par for the course.
Dishonest? No, say it ain't so.
But they're trying. See, the whole thing from last week to this week. On Saturday, when I covered the Bronx rally before, was it Saturday? Yeah, I think it was Saturday, maybe Thursday.
Oh, the Blacks for Trump rally was Saturday. Yeah.
Okay, Saturday. From Saturday till yesterday and even today, the news media and many of the politicians, all the Democrats, have been desperately trying to find some way to downplay this, to make this, to minimize this news event. They know this is significant to them. This is significant because it was New York City, because it was the Bronx, because this is where they consider themselves absolutely, they consider the Bronx so safe, they don't even talk about the Bronx. They don't go to the Bronx. They don't pay attention to the Bronx. Don't have to believe me. Ask any voter in the Bronx. They don't care.
A video from Freedom News.
Okay.
And this is showing the stage area had a permit for 3,500 people.
Yes.
This is the crowd that was trying to get in, that wasn't allowed into the stage area.
Yeah. Another couple thousand people.
Okay. And that looks like a lot more than a couple thousand people.
Well, I can conservatively say, and again, I know where they're taking the photo from. It's slightly elevated, so you can't really see deep into how far back it goes from where they are. It's only slightly elevated, so you really can't see as much depth. But what you can see is that it is going back. That's a street. Basically, it's going from one inside. It's not just on the sidewalk. That's not sidewalk to sidewalk. That's deeper than sidewalk. Those people are going back. The trees in the center, that big center tree there, that's actually across the street on the other side of the sidewalk, the street walkway for that area, for that path. So you literally could drive these are people going from the gate all the way to the sidewalk,
now
across the street, and again going in deeper. Go ahead.
Here's the other thing. Okay. I'm going to pause this when it gets to it, but I want you to see something here. Look how long those shadows are.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, notice the shadows everywhere, from the tent, from the people.
Okay, so that had to have been earlier in the day. Had to have been.
Yeah, the other photo with the shadows that deep, you could not have those, at least something like those shadows on that other picture. Where are the shadows? They're not there. It's not a real photo. But I do thank Hal for making the comment anyway, trying to help out ABC News.
Mm-hmm.
And
I think he was just trying to help us figure out what kind of timestamp that was. Honestly.
Right.
Well, I know Hal. He's looking out for the Democrats a little bit. So good try. But and again, I think it was a great event. And Donaldson had a wonderful speech. They had the president of the New York Young Republicans, Asim, I think his name is. He had a great speech as well. He was very well spoken. I think I showed you one of the images with him. He's a shorter black guy. Great speaker as well. A lot of positive energy. People were and again, you saw the images. People were happy to be there. And
I guess the New York City Marshals.
Yeah.
Is that such thing?
Yeah, there is.
Okay. They estimate at the peak, there are roughly 156,000 people at the peak of the event. That's
from the fire marshals. Well, if the fire marshals said that, I can't question it because they're the government.
This is in tweet. Okay, so this isn't coming from me. This isn't from research. It's a tweet, but I'll show you the tweet. Okay, so it says disinformation alert. Numerous left-leaning accounts on X are sharing this image of Trump's Bronx rally. This image was taken at 11:09 Eastern Time. And the rally officially started at 6 p.m. with Trump taking the stage at 6:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. New York City Marshals estimate that there were roughly 156,000 people at the peak of the event.
See, but let's go beyond.
To be fair, that's just a tweet with no. There's no corroboration behind that tweet either. That's just somebody posting a disinformation alert.
Yeah.
Unless we saw an actual sign from the marshals, which I'm sure they were all placed under order not to do a crowd count, the same way that the DC police were told not to do a crowd count on January 6th, or that the September 12th rally or any other Trump event that happens in a Democratic controlled area. We don't do that anymore. Oh, Obama's coming to town? Quick, get out the frickin' counters.
I guarantee you, they have to. The fire marshals had to do a count. Whether or not they'll publish it, different question. But they have a count. There is one there. And I can't see anything. I was just checking. New York Post is saying, now let me show you. According to the New York Post, and let me share that with you. So according to the New York Post, as you can see here, once this shows up, why is it not showing? There it is. 8 to 10,000 people, according to law enforcement. So, okay. Let's just say, even if it's 8 to 10,000 in the Bronx, that is an absolute failure for Democrats. That is an absolute rejection of Democrats and progressive policy and Joe Biden in the Bronx, the bluest county in America. And those people they kept saying, oh, but it's only white supremacists that believe in making America great. It's only white supremacists that actually follow Trump. You saw the image.
Look at this crowd.
Well, you see that
crowd.
Yeah. And
you've got everybody.
I know what time that was.
Right.
I know I was there when they were taping that. Matter of fact, you probably will see me in the background because I'm in that line, and that had to be about 1:00.
All right. Well, just to put this into a little bit more perspective for Miss Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, when she got reelected,
talk about her a little later too.
Well, I'm just going to say when she got reelected,
I got some stuff on her.
When she got reelected, she got 16,000 votes. So even if Trump drew 8,000 at a rally, at a rally. It's still more than half of her vote total for her to win her office. So at least half as many people that voted for her are going to vote for Trump in her own district.
Which means she's pretty much out of a job. Because if 60,000 is all it took to vote her in, and 8,000 are like, nope, you did a bad job, we're going to vote the other way.
Yeah.
What she got?
To be fair, I spoke to many people. There were people from Queens, Staten Island, Manhattan, the Bronx. Most of the people were from the Bronx, but there were people from there. There were people from Connecticut. There were people from New Jersey that were there. Tri-state support was there as well.
Everybody,
but there's no question that there were Blacks and Hispanics from the Bronx that were there.
But you know who wasn't there?
Huh?
You know who wasn't there?
Biden.
Dead people.
Yeah.
So there were no dead people at the rally, but we know there were dead people on the voter roll.
Yes, there are. New York is notorious for having deceased voters on their voter rolls. That is a constant.
So let's take off at least 5% for Alexandria. I refuse to give in to the let's call her by her initials bullshit. I'm sorry. I'm not doing it.
I don't care.
I'm not doing it. I'm not playing the populist bullshit. We're trying to make her a friggin' rock star. She's a dimwit. She is a dimwit of the nth degree. The woman couldn't think her way out of a paper bag if it was saturated in water and she had a flashlight. I don't think that this woman, I don't. She. What is wrong with you people in the Bronx? This is what you vote for? Really?
Free stuff. They vote for. She's considered cute. She's young. She's a woman. She's a woman of color, and she was screaming and promising free stuff.
She's not even from the Bronx.
Doesn't matter.
She's from Westchester County.
Doesn't matter.
You bring up a good.
They weren't voting for her because she was from the Bronx. They're voting for her because she's a girl who's young, relatively cute, and she offered free stuff.
She just looks adorable in this picture. Doesn't she look adorable?
She looks like a
doctored photo.
This is a Getty image.
That doesn't matter. It's been, I can tell it's been photoshopped. Look at you can tell by the saturation of the color of the trees in the background. And there is a slight blur, which they call a bokeh effect that's been applied. And so you can see that. But
let's give her to the bokeh instead of the Boca Raton. Get her out of New York.
So Frank brings up a good point about the dead people voting. And dead people on the voter rolls. One of the things that is making the rounds right now about election strategies is that now that the early voting is in place, some of the things that the Republicans are encouraging is that people vote early. So if for some unforeseen reason you cannot make the polls on the day, your vote will have already been cast.
I understand that. I do not trust early voting. I don't like it. I don't like it for anyone.
Voting. How many people have early voted and then when it came to election day, they were already dead?
Well, that's one problem, but that's not my main problem.
Well, that's one of the things is, what if you die before election day? Well, your vote's already been cast, so you die on the day. It's not a big deal.
What if you change your mind between then and now? You're a fence sitter and you vote one way, and then 2 days before the election, something happens that forces you to change your mind. Well, guess what? You're shit out of luck.
The process to fix that is harder.
Right.
But that's part of why you get double voting, which does happen sometimes. There's a percentage of that.
The only persons who should be allowed to have any sort of vote be counted other than the day of the election itself is military members who are forced to be away from the polls. And our military can figure out a way how to let them vote on the day of the election and have it counted and registered properly. There's bullshit where they got
technology today that can be done.
Yeah, well, we already know that with the technology of today, that 180% of precincts voting in one county can vote for one person without any, discrepancy with voting for anybody for the other one. We know what technology is capable of doing. It's nice if they be able to do it to do something right, as opposed to nefarious. But our military should be allowed to vote that same day. And listen, if you can't make it to the friggin' poll, you know what? If voting's not that important to you that you can't make it, then don't vote.
The only ones that I think should be able to cast absentee ballots are ones that are literally invalids that are housebound, cannot leave their homes.
Well, but even absentee voting has its chain of custody, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, that's the crux of the issue is chain of custody. As long as you can cast a ballot with a transparent chain of custody, then it should be available to you in extenuating circumstances.
By the way, I just want to focus on something again, because this is going to reflect and this is going to show up, or rather, it should show up in the voting in November. Something when you put into Google, which has an algorithm that is focused to help Joe Biden, you put in Bronx protest Trump, which you would think, would bring up the protest against Donald Trump because he had a rally. He didn't have a protest. So you bring this up, you would expect to see the Democrats. All these images, these are all, the first row, that's all from the rally. That's pro-Donald Trump. Second row, that's all pro-Donald Trump. Third row, okay, so we have 1 and 2. 2 images that are possibly three. Okay, 3 images that are the protesters, and then it goes back to all of the positive imagery for Donald Trump. So even with the Google algorithm, they can only come up with 3 images. And look at the images. This one seems to have the most people in it. So,
and
this is from the Daily News.
Yeah.
The most that they can
really
show.
I see one woman that looks like she might be protesting, and it looks like the rest of them aren't.
Well, no, I'll give them the benefit of doubt that these are people who are angry with that. Let's say, and you got all these police, mind you. Did you see any kind of police presence surrounding the Trump supporters? Because I know, having been there, we had a couple of officers at the corners, but they weren't focused on us. They were just hanging out. This is a police lineup, as you can see from the Daily News. As a matter of fact, let me share this tab. This is from the Daily News, so you can see it. And they have an entire police wall for the left, for the protesters. And you can't see half the numbers that you see they're not even close. They're not even close to equivalent. And it just tells you that the left is more violent. Look at how they have to put that police presence for an even smaller crowd with a smaller voice, and they have to have 10. Looks like 10 times.
Read the paragraph underneath that.
The Bronxites were hard to find amongst those attending. What? Bronxites were hard to find attending the rally? Who in the hell had difficulty? I was there. So are many people. I was talking to the people. That's just not real. It goes on to say, quote, Donald Trump's rally may be, quote, in the South Bronx, but it is not of the South Bronx. Bluntly put, the Trump transplants are much wider than the locals of the South Bronx. That is literally calling black people Uncle Toms. That's what that statement means. They just that's a racial slur. They just worded it differently for the Daily News. That is a racial slur. Let me go on.
See who's actually said that.
And that was said by Representative Richie Torres, a Democrat who wasn't at his own protest. But wait a minute. Rep Richie, I just showed you video. I showed you literally the still photos, and I have video of Black and Hispanic people who are from the Bronx. And I was there, and I was speaking.
It wasn't a small part of the crowd; it was a major part.
I know, and he's saying that they are. If you are, this is like Joe Biden on CNN telling the town hall. Actually, Charlemagne, to be more exact. It's like when Joe Biden went on with Charlemagne and told the American people that you ain't Black if you don't vote Democrat. Well, Richie Torres is saying the same thing. This is voter intimidation. This is racism. This statement coming from Representative Richie Torres of the New York 15th District, which is the district I live in, I will say he is being absolutely racist. And he doesn't show up to these kinds of events. He doesn't show up anywhere. And he is being racist, and he is calling Blacks and Hispanics Uncle Toms. He's just wording it very nicely for the news media. I find it insulting, and anyone of color should find that insulting and should be upset with Representative Richie Torres for what he's just said here, which is factually not correct. And they don't have a tenth of the people, but they need 10 times as many police officers, which tells you which crowd is violent, which crowd the police, the law enforcement of New York, think is dangerous. And this is the best that they can get. I wish they would give you a deeper image. But again, look at the Trump, they're registering voters legally, and look at that huge crowd you can see in the background. They won't show you the depth of the crowd because I know where this image is in the park. They're standing literally on the sidewalk, and they're going in 20 feet, 20 yards, thereabouts. It's not very deep. It's not a lot of people. They're trying their best to make you think it was equivalent. It wasn't. And again, I'm still very upset. Representative Richie Torres is being a racist, and it's in writing. There is no other way to take his words when he says that the Trump transplants are much whiter than the locals of the South Bronx. He's talking about Blacks and Hispanics who are there. That's just insulting. I'm personally very insulted.
All right. I think we spent enough on this one.
Yeah.
Fair enough, but
Well, basically, the
I'll talk
left's
more about it
trying
on
to
Sunday.
downplay the turnout, and we're finding out that the left lies, as we knew.
yeah, and we're seeing. And it's funny because here I am.
It's
living
funny.
Proof.
Well, here's the real funny thing is the left is going on and on and on about misinformation and disinformation and so forth when they're the biggest perpetrators.
But where's their tolerance? There's another question. Where's their tolerance? Where's the tolerance? Richie Torres is all about tolerance. You have to be tolerant of other people's feelings. If they're the LGB, if they're trans, if they're whatever they might be, you have to be tolerant of them. If they have different religions and such, you have to be tolerant of those individuals. Where's his tolerance for his own constituents that don't agree with his political ideology? Oh, he has no tolerance then. Then he can say, you know what? You are just a racist. You don't count. Really? Is that truly his tolerance? Yeah, he's tolerant when you obey, but he's not tolerant when you decide to make a decision for yourself that doesn't happen to be what he wants. That's evil. That's evil. That's just the way I take that. I don't see another way to see that.
It's not surprising, though. I mean, if you saw the voting map in 2022, I remember I was sitting down with my wife and we were watching the election come in, and they were, coloring the map based on votes and everything. New York has become a fairly red voting state. I mean, even though there are very deep blue areas with large population densities within urban sites, you're still seeing that a vast portion of New Yorkers are upset enough with the current administration that even back in 2022, they were voicing their displeasure.
The blue thresholds are the capital region and the city.
Which
Okay.
is weird because Albany
Pretty
is
much
largely
the
rural.
rest of New York is red.
Yeah, pretty much.
Okay,
you
you
get out
got
of-
pockets around Buffalo that are blue,
Mhm.
but pretty much the rest of New York is red.
Take out if you somehow did not have to include Albany, New York, and Buffalo,
And
pretty
Rochester.
much it's one of the reddest states in the nation.
Yeah, it's like Buffalo, Rochester, New York City, and Albany. And Albany's a weird one because if you go anywhere within the city limits of Albany, it's not very far before you're in farmland again.
Right.
Like it's just on the other side of the city.
Well, it's the capital region. That's the biggest reason, because it draws a lot of people up from the city because of state business.
Yeah.
Yeah. But as you were saying earlier, Frank, we spent a lot of time on this. I think it deserved it because there's a lot of aspects to it in terms of the election, in terms of integrity of the news media. I think it's important because of what it means for the election overall, the expectations of the public. We talked a little bit about how it may impact voting, and looking at what it means to members of Congress. But with that said, let me mention there was another story that I thought was pretty important about elections, which has nothing to do with Donald Trump at all, but it does have to do with Joe Biden. And I think it's just as important about the election process, because remember how the news media was screaming all day long. It was on every single piece of mainstream news media right in front of your face that Donald Trump was going to be taken off of the ballot in Colorado. This is for the primary. And that would also mean he was off the ballot for November, which was unconstitutional. We know this because it went to the court and it was found to be unconstitutional. They could not do that. They had no standing. But Joe Biden is now off the ballot in Ohio, a swing state that he absolutely desperately needs to win. He's off the ballot because Democrats are inept. Let's be very clear. Democrats could not figure how to put him onto the ballot according to the rules of their state.
90 days prior.
Off the ballot. Huh?
They had 90 days in order to get him on Trump. He had to be on the ballot 90 days prior to the election.
Right. And they knew this was coming. Everything's been documented. Everything was published. They knew what the time restriction they had, and they failed to get their own presumed candidate and onto the ballot.
Well, here's their thing. They couldn't get their convention in Ohio scheduled in time. Is what they're claiming. Okay,
I don't care.
Scheduled at 75 days.
No, see, this is something they knew. This they had the planning for this. They could have organized this. There's no excuse. It's ineptitude. This is someone who is inept, and this is why they're losing.
Wait a minute. Somebody forgot to file paperwork.
Yes.
See, we're still more than 90 days out. Here's the thing. We're still more than 90 days out.
Don't you dare lose your 4473, but God damn it, we can't even put a freaking president on a ballot.
Okay. We
I'm sorry.
We are still way more than 90 days away from the election.
Yeah, but now they're trying to break the rules. And as you can see, and you can do this yourself, folks, this is just a Google search. It says Biden off ballot Ohio. It's something you can check on yourself. I'm not, no special kind of search. These are the key words in this. So you should see, and we see this is from the reporting from AP, the BBC, the New York Times, the Democrat docket. So you can't tell me, Mike, you're not covering the mainstream news media. We know that this is all from 1 day ago, all except for New York Times. This is 1 day ago. So this is the most recent news that's out about this. They're so inept that they're trying to break the rules and make a special session of their state legislature, which they don't have a reason or a right to do, to make a special law so that they can actually put their candidate on the ballot because they screwed up. They're literally trying to break and bend the law to be able to get a candidate on the ballot because they screwed up, because they're inept. And this is what we're supposed to reelect. And to me, this tells you how bad they are about following the law and the Constitution. They knew what the law was. They broke it.
Here is the deal. Okay, this is from the Ohio Capitol Journal. Okay, an obscure provision in Ohio law could keep Biden off the ballot in November.
Well, they still have plenty of time.
Okay.
No, they don't.
President Joe Biden may not appear on the November.
When is this article dated, Michael? When is this article dated?
May 20th.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. May not appear on the ballot in November 2024, presidential ballot in Ohio. Okay. The Democratic National Convention, which will formally nominate Biden, won't open until nearly 2 weeks after Ohio's August 7th deadline. So they've got until August 7th.
I see.
That they could nominate Biden.
Yeah,
but because the numbskulls at the DNC didn't hold their convention in time. Okay, that's what it amounts to.
Really, Dal.
It's just, you don't file your taxes by April 15th, they'll kick in your fucking door. But if you can't even get the president on the ballot, how are you supposed to go after all these people? I mean,
for their own party.
Crazy.
For their own party.
For their own party. Oh my God.
In a swing state, he desperately needs.
Oh my. That was good. I haven't had a belly laugh like that in a long while.
It just tells you how inept they are. And yet again, vote however you want, folks. I'm not telling you.
This law has been in effect since 2010.
Yeah.
So over 14 years.
Yeah.
We have a 14-year-old law that we can't even get right. And this is the party of progress, people.
We're talking.
This is progress, all right.
3 presidential elections have taken place since then.
Yeah. So this crept up on them as a surprise. They just didn't realize this was going to happen. They had no way of knowing this could possibly happen.
Ooh,
it's only been 3 presidential elections, only 14 years in place. How could they possibly
7
know?
midterm elections.
Yeah.
You know for a fact that intern got fired. They gave it to an intern because it wasn't important enough. And now that intern's out of a job.
The details don't matter. And now they're willing to break the law to try and get it in. And they're pissed off. And by the way, this is now the Republicans' fault because the Republican the Attorney General of Ohio is saying, they said, well, we'll just push this through anyway. He said, well, no, you can't. By law, it has to be a decision by the Ohio legislature. It can't be a court that makes the decision. It can't be the federal government that makes the decision. It has to be Ohio law that's changed to get Biden onto the ballot. And there is no session. The Ohio state legislature shut down for the year. So you can't get legislation. And they're like, oh, no, but we'll just bend the law. And he's like, no, that's not what the law allows. Oh, well, you're just an evil Republican and you won't let Biden on. It's not his obligation, first of all. Second of all, you didn't follow the law. You knew for 14 years, you've known. It's not his fault. But they want to blame the Republicans and say, well, it's the Republicans being evil. How dare you make us follow the rules that they made?
Yeah.
I don't want to sound like the conspiracy theorist, which I usually am, but there's a possibility it was done on purpose.
You know,
You think so?
If they have some internal polling that shows that Trump is going to walk away with Ohio, and Ohio's not exactly blue. It's
No, this election, the polling is saying that Trump absolutely wins Ohio at this moment. Yes.
Right. So if they turn around and say, listen, there's a good possibility that Sleepy Joe, the kid sniffing pedo, ain't going to take this state, and they knew it going in, well, what better excuse to say why he lost an election than some sort of Republican conspiracy to keep him off the ballot in a particular state? This is election interference at its finest. You know, they could have either that, or there could have been a little bit of sabotage from inside the Democrat Party of Ohio, because those people right in Ohio are suffering right now. I know plenty of guys who live in Ohio can't pay their friggin' rent because
Ohio
the economy
is 17 electoral votes. That's a huge hit.
And Ohio's part of the Rust Belt.
Yeah.
He's already going to lose
a huge hit.
Wasn't Ohio the last state that had a lead refinery before they closed it? Wasn't that the last lead refinery in the United States that closed was in Ohio?
It very well could be.
Could be, but I mean, if you look at what Ohio's natural resources are, okay, and you look at the polling in Ohio, then think about this too. That train went off the rail over there.
Yeah.
And then entire freaking community. Biden didn't do a goddamn thing. Trump was there 2 days later with 18-wheelers full of food and drinking water for people. Biden took over 250 days before he showed up, 100 days before he even addressed it. Okay, maybe the people in Ohio, maybe even in his own party, is saying, you know what, listen, we might all be Democrats and we might have to save face by saying that we're Democrats, but we were doing a whole shitload better under Donald than we were this guy. And maybe by keeping this guy off the ballot, we might have a chance at saving our own state, maybe a chance at saving our own country. So they might have found a quick and easy way within a law that's already existing to be able to keep him off the ballot, figure out how to do it so it looks like an oversight rather than a conspiracy.
There you have it, folks. Frank Johnson is our resident Alex Jones.
Hey, happened. Weird things have happened.
Time to grab your tinfoil hats, kids.
You know, I can't say that you're wrong on that, but what I mostly think is that they don't pay attention to details. We see that in so much of all their policies. When we look at overseas, it shows up glaringly when we get to see it affect other countries faster than here in the United States normally. But it's because of their ineptness. What was it? The news today is that a member of Congress had his daughter and his son-in-law die in Haiti. That's been reported today. They were killed by the gangs that are continuing to conduct a civil war in Haiti, where 40,000 Americans are. And Joe Biden, the American government, shut down its effort to get Americans out of Haiti in 1 week. 1 week after that nation fell, that their president of Haiti resigned, and the gangs started open warfare 700 miles away from the coast of the United States, a 3-hour flight away. The Biden administration gave up on Haiti after a week, getting 400 Americans back home. To be exact, the Department of Justice got home, or excuse me, the State Department got 246 Americans home. That's less than 1 747 full of people. Got them out and then said, good enough, we're not talking about it anymore. Don't think about those 40,000 Americans. Now a member of Congress, his family died yesterday because the Biden administration doesn't want to talk about Haiti and doesn't want to do anything about Haiti. And yet they're trying to tell us that we should be deeply involved in the Ukraine, and that we must be ordering Israel how to respond to their 9/11 of October 10th, even as Hamas, which we just built them a pier for $320 million, an American soldier has been critically injured. We have an ongoing cost. The food is not being delivered. The UN stopped the food shipments, and he's telling us that he knows what he's doing. Why am I not surprised that Ohio, they can't get him on the ballot? It's crazy.
Oh, look at this. Ohio's not the only state.
And they're looking at litigating
They're
it
gonna
instead
miss
of
the
actually
deadline in
legislating it.
Alabama. But Alabama had to change their laws.
Did they legislate it or litigate it, though? That's the important
They
part.
legislated it.
Okay. I mean, if they legislated it, then they used the appropriate channels to change the rules.
Mhm.
As much as it's favoritism, I suppose. They at least went about it the right way.
Okay. So, and they literally one day, okay, Senate Bill 324, sponsored by Senator Marika Coleman, Democrat, would require parties to certify their candidates 74 days rather than 82 days before the election and adjust other timelines accordingly.
And it passed unanimously without discussion.
Mm-hmm.
Huh. Interesting.
And honestly, I don't mind them changing the law and so forth. But the thing is these laws have existed.
I do. I mind them changing the friggin' law. Nobody would change any law to accommodate me or you
Or Trump.
So they don't change any friggin'
Actually,
they
if
changed
roles would have been reversed, you would have seen Trump excluded.
If
Well,
no,
they said that already.
They do make legal, accountability for Trump. They do make changes. They take laws that don't apply and don't exist and contort them and combine them into bullshit laws that were never voted on or even brought into being included in the legal book, and then they charge them with it. They'll do that for Trump, but they wouldn't make any accommodations for us. Well, what accommodations would they ever make for you? Try and go build a shed in your backyard without a permit, and then wait for your fine to come in, and see if you can go back in and have it changed retroactively. Go put an addition on your house. Go let your inspection on your car friggin' expire, and then go back in a week after you get a summons for it, and tell them you want to have the law changed to accommodate you. Who are you? Who am I? We're nobody. Who the hell is Biden? I don't give a shit that the man's holding an office. He's still an American citizen, no more or less important than anybody else. And we shouldn't be making special laws to accommodate people just because they hold a political office. They wouldn't do it to any of us. They wrote the friggin' laws. They made the bed. Let them sleep in it.
Now, here is my thing with them changing the laws is it is to accommodate the voters more than it is the candidates.
But the law was already there. There was already an accommodation for the voter when they put these deadlines in place on what day they had to have conventions, what day they had to have people selected. That's why we have primaries. We have primaries to accommodate the voter so they could select the person to represent the party from which they elect from. That's the accommodation. Then that party follows the laws that their legislature their governor wrote and signed to get that person on the ballot so it conforms to the federal election law. They had an opportunity. They missed their opportunity, something that they knew was going to happen.
Let's get this right, Frank. It's not federal election law. It's state election law. Okay? These are state laws.
Right, but the ballot for president is the federal ballot, right?
It is a federal ballot, but
and that
the
has to
states make
comply
rules on the deadlines on when a candidate needs to be on it and so forth.
Right, understood. And those rules were there. The deadlines were there. And if they didn't get their deadline straight and somebody's not there, well, guess what? They don't go to the big dance.
Right.
And that's actually
special accommodations. They've had their accommodation. It was already made.
That's actually right out of their own playbook too, is to hold them to the very things that they create. So
yeah, let's not forget, nobody is above the law. Nobody is below the law. We all have to abide by the law. So here you go, people. There's your law. Suck it up.
Yeah.
You screwed up. You deal with the ramifications of it. And if your voters aren't happy about it, maybe they'll elect a new crop of people that can extend that 90-day window to 120 days to compensate for your ineptness.
Here's where I do have problems, is the fact that they are literally waiting till the midnight hour to do these changes.
Yeah, they're calling special sessions and such to make the accommodation. So there's no debate. It's just without discussion.
That's right.
We do this.
No debate. That's the key words. No debate. No one paying attention to the fine details of what are they, because what else are they attaching to this?
Well, it's reactionary. It's purely reactionary.
And what about the states who are going to turn around and have a 120-degree window now and decide, well, hey, the Trump people got their shit in by the 80th day. Let's retroactively change it and make it a 75-day window so we can push Trump off the ballot.
Well, theoretically,
are we going to allow them to do that? If we're going to allow them to make exceptions to put people on the ballot, there's nothing that's going to prevent them from shortening the window to take somebody else off of it. And they've already tried to take Trump off the ballot in as many states already. These are the laws. This is what happened. Live with it. Live with it. During the next election cycle, you'll have all the time in the world to straighten your shit out and get it done the right way. But this is what it is right now. This is what it is right now. This is what you got to live with. You wrote this crap. This is how you operate. Sorry. Cat's out of the bag. Done. Sorry, Joey. You're off it. Go make up your 17 votes someplace else. I'm sure they'll figure out some way how to turn another state that was red and turn it into something blue. I'm sure they'll figure it out.
It's crazy. Go ahead.
From the left zone playbook, they always vault rules for radicals from Saul Alinsky. And one of his main tenets inside of that playbook that they usually follow is you must hold your people of influence or the authorities to their own standard. And you do it so often in such a rapid way that it's almost impossible to actually meet that standard. Well, they're bungling
the law, literally the letter of the law.
Right.
But your own candidates, you bend.
Right.
And so what we could do is actually take a lesson from that playbook and be like, this is where you make the stand and say, hey, you know what? You guys made this rule. Now you got to live by it. And you force it. You say, yes, you must stay this course. You screwed up.
That's what the Ohio AG. That's what the Ohio AG is saying and has been trying to do, and they've tried to make that political and say, "Oh, well, it's because Republicans bad, Republicans evil." It's like, no, that's the law. The law you created. His job is to enforce the law. So they are doing what you're saying, Dow. It just so happens that, of course, the news media is spinning that as, well, that's evil.
Well,
what's up, Frank?
Democrats an excuse to call Trump illegitimate for the next 4 years.
Yeah.
So this way they can still come out. They get to have their cake and eat it too. They get to lose the election, by claiming interference. They get to live under Trump and benefit from everything that goes well under his administration while claiming he's illegitimate and be able to raise money off of it for the next 4 years. And then learn from whatever mistakes, that's providing this wasn't deliberate. But they get to win the whole way around. But the fact of the matter is, if Republicans cave in and allow them to rewrite this bullshit, the AG over there, and then Mike DeWine is governor over there in Ohio. I don't know if Mike, I don't know if DeWine is going to be the first person that would sign off on that. But no, hold them to it. Hold them to account. This is the way it is. That's it. Too late, too bad, so sad.
What, Mike?
In other election news, okay, because I think we've talked about that, okay. The Biden administration is touting its success in driving down immigration numbers or illegal immigrant numbers.
What? You mean they stopped counting it?
Yeah.
Well, supposedly illegal immigration's down 54%. But I want to remind everybody what has happened over the last few months with immigration. Namely, looking at states and what they have done.
Well, New York has an open border and an open policy. So what do you mean?
Texas.
Yeah.
Look at what Texas has done, specifically in Texas, to prevent illegal immigrants from crossing their border.
Are you talking about the barbed wire and the river?
Okay.
Buoys?
Biden administration is trying to take credit for this when it's been the states, because that's one of our most porous points of entry is the southern border. And it is states' actions that have closed that gap.
Well, that is one of the things that they've been working on. I mean, they've been working on that for quite some time in Texas. And they're spending a lot of time in court. And Texas is saying they're going to do it no matter what. Under Governor Abbott, they absolutely have said states' rights. We can protect Texas, especially when the federal government won't. Yeah.
Okay. But the thing is, I'm trying to point out, okay, the Biden administration's jumped all over. They're touting how illegal immigration is down 54%. Okay. They've done nothing to change what they're doing.
No, they still have.
All they've done is fought states to prevent them from actually taking action against illegal entry.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. These states, the numbers just proved that what the states are doing is effective.
Well, anything would be more effective than what the Biden-Harris administration or what progressives and Democrats have been offering. Because we've seen for 4 years, we've seen everything they have suggested about, well, pretty much everything, but in particular, when we're talking about open borders, when we're talking about...
I want everybody to understand, this is not things that the Biden administration has done, even though they're trying to lay claim to it. This is stuff that states like Texas, like Florida, and other states have done that have slowed these numbers, that have made these numbers drop 54%.
The states have reinforced their own borders and been successful and effective in staving off the flow. And this is actually going to hurt the Biden administration, because right now the big push on the narrative is that, the Republicans are federally blocking a strong border bill. And it just dropped. The report is that Schumer is calling for 11 million to have amnesty. So 11 million criminal aliens are going to be given amnesty at the federal level.
Oh, hell no.
That's what he's calling for. But if Biden's saying, "Hey, look, the immigration problem is solved and the numbers are dropping and everything's looking good," well, then why do you need a strong border bill? Why are you arguing that the Republicans aren't fulfilling their duty to vote for this Democrat bill or this bipartisan bill? when really it's
Well,
the uniparty.
Well, it's just like when we hear them talk about red flag laws or gun control. They say, okay, here's the new bill that's going to solve all the problems with the crime, say from guns, from people having firearms. And they have the red flag laws. And then they go, see, that'll fix it. And it doesn't. And then they say, oh, well, we're going to help make the subways. Again, using New York as an example, Kathy Hochul comes out and says, you know what? I'm going to make the subway safer. I'm going to get National Guard and put them in the subway. One, why do you need them in the subway if you've been doing such a great job like defunding the police? Obviously, that failed. And then you put them in and people get shot and stabbed and killed anyway, even with them there. So obviously, it's not working. You failed. They don't want to admit that they have failed. And I can see, yeah, they may say this again. The reason why he's going to say that is so that they can have the low information voters see the headline, and that's all they care about is the headline.
And here's the thing, okay? And there are two factors here. I did disregard one. Mexico has also increased its enforcement efforts to prevent illegal crossings. And that's between Mexico and what the states have done. That's what's really caused this drop. It has not been anything that this administration has done.
It must be, because
In
I don't
fact,
see enough
anything,
alligators.
all they've done is whined that they can't get their bill passed because of Republican obstruction.
Yeah, but it's always someone else's fault. It's always the Republican. Well, it's always the Republican fault, but they always have a perfect plan, a perfect answer, and given time, we always see that their plan, their answer, never work. It's something like kind of like what Jan just brought up about the international one. It's like what they did about Haiti. What did they do? They got one plane, half a plane full of people out of Haiti and stopped talking about it. Did that fix the problem? Well, to Democrats, yes, because no one's talking about it anymore. But the problem's still going on. There's still 40,000 Americans there. Same thing about the Americans in Sudan, 16,000 of them. But it's so obvious the ineptness and how they have failed and how this attempt to blame someone else, Democrats will bend over backwards as long as they can blame it on someone else, that other nations are taking advantage of this. Jan brought it up, and it's true. Iran, this week, within the week, Iran's president, Ibrahim Raisi, died. He was not a good man. I am not sad at all that he is dead. He killed his own Iranian people back in 1980, 81, 82, when they had their revolution and put the Ayatollah in. And he was part of the reason why Americans were taken from the embassy and taken hostage. He was a very, very bad man. Ibrahim Raisi is part of the reason why the October 7th attack from Hamas against Israel happened, because of Ibrahim Raisi. He's a very bad man. He died. He was in a helicopter.
Mm-hmm.
It was flying in a fog, and it crashed. These are the facts. He got onto a helicopter. The helicopter flew into a fog. The helicopter crashed. This is not unusual for helicopters to do. Bad weather, bad visibility, they crash. It happens around the world. It's not something crazy or unusual. At this moment, believe it or not, guys, and I actually had to look this up because it drove me nuts. I'm like, you got to be kidding me about this.
Thank you to Jan, by the way, for pointing it out.
Jen did bring this up.
Yeah.
And if you bring it up on the screen. Right now, Iran is saying, oh, it's America's fault. The American people, the American government, and in particular, Donald Trump, is at fault because of the sanctions. It's the sanctions that Donald Trump put against Iran, because Iran is the greatest sponsor of global terrorism in the world. and to fix the problem that Obama made. Obama actually funded global terrorism. I'm not saying that. That was John Kerry, the then secretary in 2016, January 2016. John Kerry said that the Iran nuclear deal funded global terrorism. He said that on CNBC. Don't have to believe it. So Trump, seeing that we were funding global terrorism, put sanctions, got rid of the Iran nuclear deal, put sanctions on Iran. And because of those sanctions that Biden has slowly been lifting, Iran is now saying, well, it's America's fault. It's Trump's fault because you had the sanctions. So our pilot in the helicopter crashed in bad weather in a fog. It's only because Democrats will bend over backwards and they will use this to blame Trump. This is the only one. They're going to blame. America's evil here. No, sanctions are bad. That's the only reason they're doing this. Iran is trying to get money. They're trying to get paid because they have bad pilots who made a bad decision and a bad man died.
Mm-hmm.
That's nuts. Before it gets too much later, I wanted to hear from Frank about how his trip to the NRA was. Like we heard about his trip, but kind of partially. But the actual convention itself, what was the convention like?
Well, this was an odd convention for me to be at because I was actually not in my primary capacity as media during this one. I limited myself to 6 hours of coverage. I started off with a list of 20 places that I wanted to hit, and I only hit 5. It was.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah. It was. Well, all right. First of all, I had a bunch of surgery not that long ago, and I thought I would have been recovered enough to do all the walking I had to do. Turns out that's not the case. When you're on your feet for 16 hours a day on concrete in that kind of an arena, you have to take frequent breaks to sit down. And then when you're doing a lot of walking in there, I have 2 layers of those Dr. Scholl's gel inserts in my shoes to try and give me as much padding as possible. Didn't help. The show was great. I got to see a bunch of new stuff that I hadn't seen before. It's been a couple of years since I've been on the show circuit with various injuries and COVID and everything else that put us back. Interesting. It was the NRA show. Most of the shows I do usually are industry based. So you have a lot of other manufacturers, competitors, media, stuff like that. You don't get consumers at the shows I go to because it's their industry shows. The
Right.
NRA show and the upcoming GOA show in Knoxville, they're both consumer based. This is members of those organizations that show up. They're showing up for the convention, but they also want to show and see what the manufacturers have come up with. And I was there with 5150 rifles. And even though I was there in the capacity of, mostly wanting to be there for media, I believe in the company. I believe in the people that run it. I believe in the product. So when they asked if I would help, fill in with one of their guys being out, they said, well, nobody knows the stuff like you do, so come on in. So I said, you know what? It'll be a great opportunity for me to work this side of the camera for one of these events. And it was great. Met a lot of interesting people. Made a lot of really good contacts. It was great seeing people in the industry that I haven't seen in a couple of years. Getting reconnected with people that I haven't seen. It was like stepping into a warm environment. These are people. I gotta say about the Second Amendment community, the industry itself is probably the most cutthroat industry on the planet.
Yeah.
It is harsh. We've seen, and I've heard tale of companies that, like small companies that have a really great idea and it's some new novel approach to doing something, and some bigger company being there with their legal team, and they say, okay, that product is not thoroughly registered yet for their patents. We'll go in and hit them with a cease and desist order for that item that they came up with and said, here, cease and desist. That's it. We're closing your company down. and these small companies don't have the money to fight, even though they're in the legal right. They don't have the legal money to fight. And next thing you know, some big company comes in, swoops in, writes them a check, and say, "We're buying your whole company. We want to own your intellectual property," and you'll see that happen. It's amazing. But when you step out and you talk to a lot of the people, you could not find a more warm, receptive group of people that will, help you make introductions, help you make connections. It's just fantastic, with a lot of the people. But I got to say, the one thing that struck me this show, this coming up is the 80th anniversary of the Normandy invasion at D-Day.
Right.
Now, Americans, we all know the D-Day invasion. At least we should. Okay. Mm-hmm. This was the largest battle of World War II. We had the most amount of people on landing at the beaches at Normandy to try and take Europe, and we suffered massive casualties. Allies at the Axis. It was just, it was one of the most horrific things. If you've ever seen Private Ryan, that is the most accurate depiction of what the Normandy invasion looked like. It was hellacious. Now, overshadowed by that is another hellacious battle called the Battle of Monte Cassino, which took place in Italy. And Monte Cassino was an old monastery sitting on top of a mountain that for some reason or another was miscommunicated that it was being used as a radar station. And it wound up being a battle that took 80,000 lives of both American, British, Italian, German, and Polish officers, service members. 80,000 men died on that mountain, making it even more bloody than Suribachi. Now, Suribachi, if you've ever seen the photo of the men, the Marine Corps, raising the flag at Iwo Jima.
Yeah.
That was Mount Suribachi. That was the most bloody battle in the Pacific. When you have D-Day, that was the most bloody battle in Europe. Monte Cassino was the bloodiest battle in Italy. Well, I met a man there who was the son of a Polish soldier. Now, the Poles were some of the last men to get to the battle. The Poles suffered some 20,000 losses, and they took the mountain. They were some of the last people to get there. They took the mountain. They drove the Nazis out. The monastery was, if you looked at what the monastery looked like before, and then you looked at what the mountain looked like after, it just looked like a mountain. The monastery was
obliterated.
It was gone. Now, we're talking about a monastery that is size of the Temple Mount in Israel. This huge 15-acre stone complex, and it was beautiful and spectacular, and it was just gone. It was obliterated. The man I met, his father and other men who were there started collecting the weapons that were left there by all the fallen soldiers. And he has a collection that's on display. Oddly enough, he's in Ohio. He now lives in Ohio. He had over 300 weapons on display that were all in somehow or another involved in that battle. He has the largest private collection of guns from that. And to sit there in this aisle and look at this history that was laid out before us, and in every single firearm was documented. Every single piece, every firearm had paper documented from the battle, what the name of the soldier was who carried it, what their disposition at the end of the battle was. Were they a prisoner? Were they killed in action? Were they missing in action? Did they surrender? Did they go home? Every single thing is documented. He has weapons that was sent to Britain as part of the American Lend-Lease program that we had. Britain didn't manufacture a lot of their own weapons. to keep up with the war supply. They couldn't. So Americans, we had a program. We were giving them weapons prior to our involvement in World War II, but it was a lending program. We lent them the weapons because if the rest of the world saw us as supplying the weapons, we would have been we would no longer have been neutral. Remember, we weren't neutral come December 7th, 1941. We were thrust into the war. Before that, we were neutral. We had nothing to do with it. But we had given weapons to British on a lend program.
Mhm.
He had a Colt 1911 pistol on the wall that was manufactured in 1913 that had never been issued. And it was collected. It was collected at Monte Cassino because it was with a shipment of weapons that was being issued to British servicemen that were fighting there, and the serviceman who it was going to be issued to was killed before he received it. And this was left laying in the barrel with other firearms. This gentleman I met, his father retrieved that gun from there and managed to get the paperwork all the way traced back. Over 300 guns. And I was talking to the guy, and he's got Lugers. He has 6 German-made Luger firearms in consecutive serial number.
What?
I can't find
like out of
one.
the factory.
I cannot find one to add to my collection that I can afford. He has 6 of them in consecutive serial numbers. Each one of them were all given to German officers during World War II. And I'm sitting, I told him, I said, I can't find one of these guns. How did you he goes, he collected 2, his father collected 2. He collected the other 4 from collectors here in the United States.
Really?
To the collection, buying them from Americans and buying them from around the world. I said to him, I said, boy, I tell you, I would love to just get my hands on one of them to add to the collection. He pulls me in close. He goes, back in Poland, I have warehouse, 2,000 more just like them. I bring one to you next time. This guy's sitting on a collection of 2,000 Lugers from World War II. And he said, next time I see you, next show, I bring one.
Oh, man.
You with the boot. You guy have FFL. We through the transfer. I give you gun. I said,
That's awesome.
I just have to come to Ohio and pick it up. But I got to tell you, this guy was like 75 years old. Wallach is his name. Guy's name is Wallach. He gave me a message to give to all of everybody here watching. And this is something that's very important. We're getting close. I'm only gonna stay on with you guys for a few minutes more because I'm exhausted. But here's a guy whose father fought with the Polish army under the Russian flag because Russia had taken over and everything else like that. It wasn't until, and he also had guns from the Polish uprising shortly after World War II, where Poland had, trying to regain its independence. Poland didn't gain its independence back until the 1980s when the Soviet Union fell.
Right, Solidarnosc.
Yeah.
Right. Once the Iron Curtain fell, this guy Wallach was able to move himself and his family out of Poland and come to the United States. And we're talking 40 years ago. This man is now 75, almost 80 years old.
Mm-hmm.
He says, I lived under communism for half of my life, and for half of my life I've lived here under freedom. He goes, I'm seeing your country turn into the country that I fled. He goes, please do not let your country fall. He says, hold on to your freedom and guard it with everything that you have. Fight for it to the last breath, because when they take it from you, it'll be gone forever. This is a man who travels the country trying to educate people on not only the horrors of war, but the horrors of communism. This is a man that has lived in all worlds. He has lived in peace. He has lived in war. He has lived under freedom. He has lived under communism. His family fled. His family stayed. He's watched his family prosper, and he watched his family die. The man has seen everything that there is to see, and he's giving us a warning to please do what we can to hold America together and make sure that we stay free. Now, it's hard. It's when you have guys like us. I mean, you got the four of us standing here. We all have only lived under the one banner,
Right.
and we can only, extol the virtues of what we know. And we can only regale the tales of what we don't know. So we can only tell other people about how bad Soviet Union was and how bad communism is, because we've lived through it secondhand. We tell the story. Well,
Most of us.
For clarification for the audience, the guys know this. I have lived in Moscow while it was still under Soviet Union rule for a year and a half. I've been
right, but you were an American.
But I was
All
American, so
right.
So I have an appreciation of the extremes that many people went through.
Right.
But nowhere near like
not what this. But he is a man who's lived under everything imaginable, and he is trying with every one of the last breaths that he has to try and preserve his story, preserve the story of his heritage, of his ancestors, and of his family's plight, and the plight of his countrymen that have lived under everything. And if you look at Poland today, Poland is thriving.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mhm.
Poland is not allowing their country to be overtaken. They're doing everything they can to preserve their history, their heritage, their tradition. They're going to keep Poland, and they're going to keep that alive because they understand how valued their history is and how much value their heritage has.
Yeah.
Americans are throwing it away. They're throwing it away because this generation that we have now has never had to fight to preserve anything. It's been given to you. It was so easy to live under freedom when you didn't have to pay a price for it. When somebody else had to pay the price for it and you dismiss them, when you don't listen to them, you don't take their advice, you don't heed their warnings, and all you do is you look at your phone, you look at your device, and you don't really know. You don't know what the struggle, you don't know what the hardship is when the poorest Americans are still ranked amongst the richest in the world. We don't know hardship here. Don't take your life for granted and think that the government is going to solve everything. It's not. It's not. The only problem that the government can solve is when there's too many of us. And then it has a way to figure out how to deal with that too. So, hold on to your freedom with everything you got, because people would not be risking everything they have on rickety boats to cross an ocean to come to a country that was worse off than where they are.
Right.
Don't be so quick to condemn America and try to sell us short. We're still great. We have to keep it that way.
We do. I worked with a gentleman when I was up in Alaska that fled Poland when it was under communist rule. And he said that things were horrible there. He actually had to flee for his life because of the way things were. And communism fell in Poland in the 80s. And they have since rebuilt back up under a capitalist type economy. And they are growing, they are excelling because they've lived that life. They've been under that type of deal.
Yeah.
And some of the stories that he would share with me is just unimaginable what they dealt with.
Yeah, that's something.
Oh, and my friend Wallach did give me something called Polish Coca-Cola.
Oh yeah.
That I don't
Yeah.
know. I would imagine it's something like coffee with water or something.
No, he's sitting in the booth. We're sitting there talking and filming a video with him. And he goes, "Please, do you want to have some?" He looks around and goes, "Polish Coca-Cola." I said, "Yeah, I'm a little thirsty." He comes out with, he goes behind the curtain. Now all of the booths have a curtain behind it, and everybody
Right.
keeps their private stuff behind it. And he comes out with this little tiny little Dixie cup, like the size of the cup on a thing of Pepto-Bismol, little white cup. And he comes walking over to me. He gets within like 6 feet of me. I smell it before I say it. It's this blood red liquid. This cup. And he says, "Yeah, this do you very good." I still don't know what the hell it was. What is this? He goes, "Well, in Poland, it's Coca-Cola, cherry wine, and brandy.
Yeah.
Okay,
It's
that's
about
next.
it's about 170 proof. I gave me one shot of this thing. I was hugging the wall all the way back to our booth, like 400 feet away.
That's strong.
100
Yeah.
pounds, and this stuff was knocking me on my ass. I'm leaving the place, and he's running over to me. He goes, "You want another bottle? I get you a bottle." I said, "No, bring me a bottle next show with my Luger. We'll be okay." He goes, "Okay, see you next time."
Oh, that's great.
What a sweet guy. He had 3 guys in the booth with him. All of them were adorable. I'm like, everybody should have a grandfather like that. You know, he was just such a sweet, gentle guy. You know, he just had like this. He was like Santa Claus without the beard. I mean, he was just that happy. He's just that happy. But when he was talking about his youth, he started getting very upset.
I can imagine.
He remembers the horrors. And then when he talks about being here now, he's like, please don't lose what you have. What you have is so precious. Don't lose it.
It's true. He's absolutely right about that.
And you see that from a lot of people that have immigrated to this country that
Most of them.
became Americans. Yeah, they became Americans and then naturalized citizens. They come from these places. They come here. They have a good life, and then they start seeing things that they recognize from where they came from, and it scares them because it's like, oh my God, I fled this. I was able to live happy and free in the latter half of my life, but now my legacy, my family, is going to possibly see the very things that I meant for them never to have to see ever again. That's why it's so important to fight for these things and never to let history die. Like never, that's one of the reasons why you see a lot of these progressive cultures, like when they infect a place, the first thing that they do is what? Destroy history.
Mhm.
They want to revise it. They want to change it because they want to erase any evidence of any hardship so that you go in ignorant thinking it's going to be the greatest thing since sliced bread.
And that's why Kamisola in a lot of his books talks about how they have erased Black history and some of the accomplishments that Blacks have had prior to 1964.
Yeah.
If you actually look at Black history, not how Blacks were treated, but actual accomplishments of Blacks. You've got places like Dunbar High School, where prior to 1964 was putting out some of the most intelligent people in the United States. Had some of the highest IQ, some of the highest standardized testing scores of anywhere in the United States. A lot of people were trying to claim that Dunbar High School was one of these schools where people were brought in, recruited into in order to up their scores and so forth. And that is far from the truth. In fact, Dunbar High School was grossly underfunded and had 1/3 of all the black people in Washington, D.C. went to this high school. Yet it was able to turn out scores better than most of the United States. Another study that they did, World War II, a lot of Northern black military had higher IQs than a lot of Southern whites.
Yep.
Okay. Where we're getting this transition, where we're starting to see things start degrading for the black population and black numbers, is after 1964, after the Civil Rights Act of 1964. Prior
After
to that,
Johnson started to wage a war on poverty and destroyed the black family.
And prior to that, blacks were actually excelling in a lot of areas. Public School 91 in New York, which was a predominantly black school, again, as black elementary school, again, had some of the highest standardized tests. Most of the kids going to that school were reading several grades above their what grade they were in. They're doing coursework several grades above the grades that they were in. And that we see this over and over when we actually look into the true history of Black America.
Well,
but too many of us want to focus, or too many people want to focus on how blacks were treated, which is really telling the history of white America. It's not telling the history of Black America.
Mm-hmm.
Well, there's very little benefit to talking about the benefits and virtues of any culture if that is the culture that you are trying to keep repressed. If the more you talk about the accomplishments, the victories, all the inventiveness, all of the benefits that any culture has brought into modern society, the more people are going to celebrate it, the more you're going to know people are going to build on it. But if all you want to do with that culture is tell everybody how they were victimized and continue to do that and keep the minimals down to where Black America only has 5 black people to look up to.
Yeah.
All right. Don't expect it. I mean, why? All right. Why are the Yankees the most feared team in baseball? That when the beginning of every season, the Yankees always like the odds-on favorite to win it all. You know why? Because they have a history of winning. They've won more rings than any other team. Okay. When you have that history of winning, you're always going to be perceived as a winner. Even if you don't win that year, you're still going to be the odds-on favorite the next one. But when you have a team like, I don't know, give me the worst team in baseball.
The Brooklyn Dodgers.
Team. All right. Look at when you have a team that's never celebrated because they never have a victory, they're never going to start off the season and be looked at like they're in contention.
Yeah.
They're always going to be placed at the bottom of the barrel because they don't have a history of winning. If you don't talk about the history of victory for any people or any person or any group, then you're only going to be able to talk about the things that they've been relegated to fail at. And that's what government has done to certain groups. So when you talk, all right, who do we have? Let's talk about Rosa Parks. Let's talk about George Washington Carver. Let's talk about Martin Luther King. Let's talk about Malcolm X. We don't talk about the dozens of black women that were mathematicians during the space race that made sure that our rockets got up and back to where they were supposed to, that made sure that our astronauts came home. We don't talk about that. We don't talk about the dozens of black engineers that turned our automotive industry into the automotive industry that led the world in advancement, in style, in every aspect. We were the greatest. We were the pinnacle. We don't talk about that because nobody ever talks about it. One, they wouldn't talk about it then because it wasn't sophisticated. You know, you couldn't give credits to the black community for what the black community had done. And now they don't talk about it, because if you talk about it, you're gonna show how much they've accomplished. We can't let that happen, because that takes away from the victimhood society. We take away that victim mentality. So, you know, we can't tell black kids like the governor, oh, here's a computer. You know what a computer is, or no? Don't you know what a computer is? It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. If we start talking about all the victories that people have and the benefits and the things that they've created, will do that much more for them, more than any government program will do. Let people learn about history, good, bad, and indifferent. Erasing any of it doesn't do anybody any good.
And at the crux of at the focal point of that entirety, the reason that people did so well in general is because the culture at the time was focused on liberty first principles.
Yeah.
That's the big export from the United States. That's the culture that we should be focusing on as a country, is the pursuit of liberty.
No,
Because in liberty there is success. It's been proven. And yet the more we progress through our current timeline arc, the less we focus on liberty first principles, and the more we're being led to believe that it isn't about the people, it's about the people that lead you.
Mm-hmm. And here's one thing.
Before you go, okay. I gotta jump. I gotta get out of here. It's a little after 11, and I got hungry, angry mouths downstairs that need to go outside. I just want to announce something real quick. Next week, I have a very big announcement for the show. I want everybody next week, when the show starts, to be hitting that share button and join button and all the rest of that stuff, because we got some stuff that we're going to be bringing to you guys next week. I want to get everybody an opportunity to get their hands on some. So big announcement next week. Until then, my compatriots will take over for me. I love you guys all. And just remember, this weekend, while you're chewing on that nice big hot dog and throwing that burger down your throat and all the rest of that stuff, and you're celebrating with your family, just remember the price that was paid for that freedom, because this is Memorial Day weekend. And even though a lot of us take the opportunity to celebrate, we must first take the opportunity to remember and take the opportunity to give thanks.
Amen.
Over almost 1 million Americans from the beginning of our service, from the beginning of our history until now, have given their lives in the preservation of freedom and the cause of liberty. Almost 1 million. So this weekend, when you look up at that flag at the barbecue, remember that every time that it waves in the breeze, that's every soldier who's gone, before us. Give thanks to them before you celebrate, because it's in their honor and their memory. So God bless America. God bless you, and you guys all be safe and shoot straight. I'll see you guys next week.
Welcome home, Frank. Have a good night.
Thanks, guys. Love you guys.
Love you.
Well, okay. I think he wanted one switching gears, but yet I think it still kind of relates. I know, Mike, you had mentioned you wanted to talk about Alito, Supreme Court, and in distress.
Yeah.
Which I think is the key part of the whole conversation about Supreme Court Justice Alito, his home, his freedom of expression, and what it means to see a United States flag signaling distress. But you take it off. Go ahead.
Yeah. Actually, Alito was called out twice this week. The first time he's called out was for flying a flag, the American flag, upside down. Now, of course, the media is portraying that as an upside down flag is symbolic of steal the vote.
What?
Steal the vote.
That's what they're calling it now.
Yes.
That's not what
they're trying to claim.
I've never seen that in the flag code.
The flag upside down, you are a part of the steal the vote conspiracy group, and that you are an insurrectionist because of that.
Let's full stop there, because that is factually, definitively, historically a lie. That is
it is
crap.
Okay, and it is actually in the United States flag code that flying the flag upside down is a signal of extreme distress. Okay. At the time that was flown, this country is in extreme distress. In fact, I'm surprised we don't see a lot more flags flying upside down, because our nation is in extreme distress at this point in time.
Actually, there are a lot of flags, and this isn't a new thing. We've been seeing it for well over a decade that I can recall in political commentary, and it became probably the most popular over the last decade, end of the Obama administration moving forward, that we've been seeing people say, no, we are in distress. America is in distress. Often you'll see it with a gray flag. Sometimes it's the blue and black flag, but blue and black stripes, or the grayed out American flag, but you will see it upside down. It's been at many conventions. It's been at many events, normally of individuals who are law-abiding citizens that aren't part of protests, that aren't creating autonomous zones, because that's the left. The left creates autonomous zones. The left creates insurrection. The right has a protest. There's a big difference. Go ahead.
And even if you have a problem with what happened on January 6th, one thing I want to point out on this, okay, while I disagree with the actions that some took on January 6th, I understand the reasoning behind the actions that occurred on January 6th. For anybody to deny that there wasn't some severe irregularities in the 2020 election, they are either complacent or contributed to those irregularities, or they have their heads stuck in the sand, because it is coming out here recently that there were a number of things that people were saying happened up to January 6th that everybody was trying to deny and sweep under the carpet and so forth. And one of the things that I want everybody to remember is how hard and how vehemently the Democrat Party fought against any type of transparency into our elections during the 2020 election process.
Even now for the most part,
now,
even though
they're still fighting.
even though it's to the point where you can no longer ignore the evidence of irregularities that are appearing now in the news media, and they're forced to report on them. Even now, the main narrative is we don't talk about it. There was nothing wrong.
Or they only talk about it when they are forced to talk about it.
Or it's in relation to 2016. Or it's in relation to 2016.
Mm-hmm.
Then it's acceptable.
But you can go clear back to Bush v. Gore and that election, and you can see our elections have gotten progressively worse and the number of irregularities that are occurring in them. Okay, and I don't care who won or who lost any particular election. Each election is getting progressively worse, where we are getting to the point where we can no longer trust our election process. 2020 was the most recent. And the thing is it was so blatant that these irregularities were occurring. And like I said, I don't care who ended up being the winner. I don't care on that. The thing is the inconsistencies and the irregularities that were brought up prior to the election being formalized. Formalized on January 6th are undeniable. Okay, no matter how you look at it, there were too many things. There were too many ballots that were found thrown in drainage ditches. There were too many of this, that, and the other.
Irregularity, what they called the irregularities. There were many issues. Yes.
Breakdowns in chains of custody of the ballots.
Yeah,
there were missing images. There's a laundry list of things.
Issues.
And all of those can basically be reduced down to our elections are feeling more guided rather than actually the will of the people.
Well, that's it exactly. Okay, I think election day is nothing more than a farce anymore.
It's still important. It's still important in the sense that it is a day. It is a day where we're still encouraged to participate, but it's the only day that seems to matter where we participate. That's the problem. Americans should be participating in their governance every single day.
Well, true.
As much to a certain extent.
Here's my thing. Okay, if they truly wanted to prove that the 2020 election was the securest in history, as they claim, then why was there such a huge fight over the transparency of the election, the vote tallying, and so forth? Why was transparency so hard to get? Why were there so many challenges against trying to find out what truly happened?
Really, there's only one answer to this. There is no reason not to do an audit of any election at any time unless there is something that you do not want to reveal. Because no matter what, there's two answers. One, you either don't want something to be revealed, or two, you believe that upon review of that audit that you will lose. That's it. Those are the only two reasons why you would say, no, I do not want an audit. It's either you know something is wrong or you fear that enough wrong will be found that you will lose. Those are the only two reasons. We know that. It's very clear. It's very obvious. The media doesn't want to word it in those words. Instead, they say, you're the bad guy for asking for an audit, which is a normal legal process that is available in every state. It's just no one wants to do it. But it's legal. It's something you can request, and it is considered part of the legal process to validate and assuage the concerns of the American people, which is why we have been known in the past to be the best elections in the world, rather than just like every other country.
And honestly, I believe that if more transparency would have occurred prior to January 6th, January 6th would have never have happened.
Well, yeah, there would be no question. We'd have an answer. Whether you like the answer or not, that's not important. Audits aren't done because you like the answer. They're done to confirm, to validate, and answer the questions that may exist. Period. There's no reason not to do it.
And there was enough questions raised that there should have been a formal audit conducted. Okay, and the fact that there was so many fights and so many things to prevent that is very troubling to me, as it should be to every one of us, regardless what party you're in.
Because essentially what it means is that your voice is being nullified.
Exactly.
Your voice as a person, as an individual that is a citizen of this nation, is being suppressed and nullified. That really your betters are going to be the one to lead the nation as opposed to acquiescing to your will, which is how it's supposed to be. They work for us. Our leadership is not a leadership in the sense that they lead us places. Our leadership is there to take the will of the people and our concerns to a national stage so that it can be presented to the nation and followed through on.
Yeah.
And the lack of transparency in the 2020 election is more than grounds enough to fly a flag upside down.
Yeah.
Because when we lose our election, lose trust in our elections, then our country is in severe, extreme duress.
Yeah.
I want to again clarify this and show the validation. So this is from 4 USC 1. And if you go, so this is the United States flag and seal, seat of the government and the United States. Chapter 1, the flag. This is federal law. This is the United States law and regulations. And when you go down, and where is it? I just had it in front of me. There it is.
Just passed it.
And here it is. Respect, under respect for the flag. Item A. This is section 8, item A. The flag should never be displayed with the Union, that's symbols, down, that's the stars, that represents our Union. That blue field should never be down except as a signal of dire distress in instances of extreme danger to life or property. Well, if the country is ending, if freedom is being curtailed, if your rights are being taken away, that is an extreme danger to your life and to your property. You know, things like red flag laws are being enacted that take away your property without giving you due process. You're not notified until the government takes it. Civil forfeiture laws are in place that are there to take away your property without giving you due process. You have or states, entire states that are there denying you the ability to defend yourself. So we're seeing these things happen. These are threats to our life, our property, our liberty. And it is not unusual for any American to say that is distressing. Therefore, any American can fly the flag upside down. It is not illegal, nor is it per se political in the sense that they're trying to make it. It's not an insurrectionist. And even a Supreme Court justice and his or her family have the right under the First Amendment to express themselves. Just because they were elected or appointed because of the position they have in the government does not invalidate their reasons. President Biden did not lose his right to free speech. Chuck Schumer, Kirsten Gillibrand, AOC, name the elected official, name anyone in our government, they didn't lose their right to speak, to express themselves, to protest. They didn't lose any of their rights just because they have an elected official position or an appointment, or they're part of our government. You're still an American citizen. You still get to do that. So the fact that the media is trying to say that Alito and or his family have committed insurrection is gaslighting. It is fear mongering. It is meant to silence people. And they're saying, oh, we're going to come after you as well. It is meant to kill
they're
your
also
freedom.
trying to use it, and let's get this across too, as justification to expand the court.
You
Yeah, that's the secondary thing that this is their excuse, because they've been trying everything to say, well, we need more Supreme Court justices to balance it, which is a lie. It is unnecessary. That's just politics. They want a certain answer.
It's either the court packing or it's we need an enforceable, what was it? Schiff said this.
Code of ethics.
Yeah, an enforceable code of ethics, which means that they want to bring the reins of judicial power underneath the legislative or underneath the executive branch.
They've always had it. They have the ability to impeach any member of the judiciary for anything that they can actually prove comes shy of good behavior. That is their code of ethics.
And here's the other irony about the flag. They're so concerned about flags, yet the same people that are complaining about the United States flag flying upside down had no problem waving foreign flags in the people's house a month ago.
Yeah, flying a flag in Congress. They're the same people who at the protests at all of these autonomous zones, which are insurrectionists by definition, they're also burning the flag. We see it all the time. Democratic Socialists of America. We go to Columbia, Columbia College, Harvard University, go to their campuses, their insurrection zones, and they're burning the flag. And they're all perfectly happy with that. But oh my God, yes, those students, they can burn the flag. They can throw it on the ground and step on it. The U.S. women's soccer team can throw the flag on the ground and step on it in front of the entire world. And that's okay. But oh my God, you flew the flag upside down on a day after an election that Democrats won. How dare you? You have been a criminal. That's a crime. That's bad. No, you don't get to say that. That's just insane.
Well, and like Grace O'Malley Grimm points out, it wasn't that long ago that they were calling for the entire court to be replaced because of a 9-0 decision that the court handed down about Trump's ballot access.
Yeah.
In a federal
Colorado
election.
Yep.
Yeah. Because it was unconstitutional. And even the three left-leaning members like Sotomayor and Ketanji Brown Jackson, or Jackson Brown, whatever her name is. She's a diversity hire anyway. They all said it. They all agreed. It was unconstitutional.
Right.
Especially since they decided to litigate it instead of legislate it. There wasn't even a legislative process. It was a litigation by the Supreme Court of Colorado. So it was even in the wrong purview. There was no purview there for that decision.
And it wasn't even a full trial.
No.
Okay, it was just a judge that handed down a decision.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's insane. It is insane. They pervert. When we listen to the left, it's always interesting how they pervert these things. Remember, it was not long ago that we had Nancy Pelosi, about a year ago, came out and said that Donald Trump has to prove his innocence. And that is, again, a perversion. No, you don't. No American has to prove their innocence because they are innocent. Unless they have been convicted as guilty, every American, in all circumstances, no matter what it may be, they're innocent. Period.
And
Full
that's
stop.
actually, you bring up something that has been troubling me for a while now. The United States has one of the largest per capita incarceration rates of any other nation.
Yeah.
Okay. And one of the big reasons why our incarceration rates are so high is because of this leading people to believe that they are going to be found guilty because we have this quote unquote presumption of guilty until you prove your innocence. We have twisted our legal process around.
Yeah.
And that's why so many DAs are able to get plea bargains, get defendants to take plea bargains when they've done absolutely nothing wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's how they get all the plea deals done. But there is, and I understand, I've talked to people who've dealt with the courts, and I've heard many people say, well, yeah, if you're in trial, you're presumed guilty because you're there no matter what people say. But no, it's a fact of that's only because we keep letting people like Nancy Pelosi say things that are stupid, like, oh, no, you must be guilty. Otherwise, you wouldn't be in a courtroom. No, that's not how it works. That's not the truth.
Well, no, it's a culture that we have developed as a nation.
Well, yeah, we've developed as a nation because many political leaders have created that lie.
Mm-hmm.
And if you tell the lie enough times, you say it loud enough, it becomes true.
And that's exactly what they've been doing with Trump. He has to be guilty because a grand jury indicted him.
And the more connected we become by instantaneous social media, the presumption of guilt gets worse because people will immediately have feelings, not facts, but feelings about convicting somebody in the court of public opinion before they're actually found guilty in an actual court.
Well, they equate that you've been convicted in the court of public opinion of feelings. And therefore, if the feelings are saying you're guilty, well, then you must in fact be guilty. But that's what the media has been subverting and how they have been subverting it. They go, well, don't you feel like he's guilty? And feelings are more important than facts. Therefore, regardless of the facts, he must be guilty. This is what we were hearing from Representative Maxine Waters in the Derek Chauvin case a little over a year ago. And she was out on the streets demanding that Derek Chauvin had to be guilty of a crime he was never indicted for. He wasn't on trial for the very charges she was saying he has to be guilty. And if he wasn't guilty of something he wasn't charged with, well, then, the entire justice system is wrong and black people are being somehow not treated properly. It makes no sense. Maxine Waters was just using people's emotions, using misrepresentation of the law to be able to get a political gain. And she had nothing to say when half an hour later, there was a drive-by shooting 1 block from where she was speaking, and she had nothing to say about that. She had nothing about trying to enforce the law at that moment. No, that was nothing. I have a long memory. I remember what these people say sometimes, and it's just insane.
And there's also an economic portion to that too, with the acceptance of a plea deal rather than fighting for one's innocence, because of the way the tax system is structured, the government has extremely deep pockets at every level.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah,
So
prosecutors.
we basically fund our own. We basically fund our government to criminalize us as people.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
there's no way to draw the purse strings back and close the wallet without the government saying, all right, you're going to try and take our resources from us. We're going to destroy you. Now you can either let us destroy you and, maybe you'll prove your innocence, or we're just going to spend you into jail.
And oftentimes what also ends up happening is they will seize your assets, freeze your bank accounts, and so forth, so that you don't have the means to be able to defend yourself.
An excellent case of this is Dexter Taylor.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Look what they're doing to him. I mean, he's basically totally reliant on public funding from people that are sympathetic to just fund an appeals process so that he's not stuck in Rikers for the next 10 years waiting for his appeal to come to court.
And here's another thing Cam brings up. A good point. It takes an act of God to get out of jail when you can prove your innocence once you're convicted. Well, here's the thing, is if you accept a plea deal, a part of that plea deal
is accepting guilt.
Isn't just accepting guilt. It's giving up your rights to appeal.
Yeah.
Once you accept that plea deal, you are essentially saying, yes, I did it. Yes, I am guilty. And once you say that, your rights to appeal have just evaporated.
Yeah. Yeah, if you're going to declare your innocence, you have to run it all the way. You can't accept a plea deal.
Right. And Dexter has a great case, and he should win on appeal. He should have won outright, of course, and even New York State knows this. They know that he's going to win. But they put him in for 10 years, which was a punishment, because they know it's going to take a couple of years before he'll ever get the appeal. So he's going to be punished for a couple of years in jail for 50 rounds of ammunition for following the law overall and not breaking the law, not harming anyone on a law that existed and has never been used up until the day it was used against Dexter Taylor. I really don't even understand. Where's the left on this? I always wanted to ask that. Where's the left? Dexter Taylor is black. This isn't some white guy somewhere else. It's Dexter Taylor was a middle-class black guy. Where was the left screaming about how racist this is and how unfair this is that this black man is being charged with a crime that has never been used against any human being ever in its existence until now?
But the first time it's used, it's against a black man.
And it was used only one time it's been used. It's only to punish a black man who isn't breaking the law, isn't hurting anybody, was in the middle of doing a career change. But they won't say that because that would make the leftists look bad because, well, they want to take away your guns. Because the nation isn't in distress. This isn't distressful that a man making a career change, following the law, raising his family is going to be thrown in jail for 10 years. That's not distressful at all. Don't fly your flag upside down because that's normal, right?
Yeah. We've been, ever since this show started, we've been talking about the distress this country is in.
Yeah.
Ever since we started this live stream, and we go over it week in and week out about the distress that this country's in. And if you can't see it, you're not paying attention. You really aren't. Okay.
It's willful ignorance.
Mm-hmm.
It's
And
multiple
we're going to
events.
go ahead and start wrapping things up. We're closing hard in on 3 hours. This weekend, as Frank mentioned, is a day of remembrance. Remembrance of lives that paid the ultimate sacrifice to give us our liberty, to give us our right. Well, not to give us our rights, to protect our rights, to protect our liberties. These men and women literally wrote a blank check so that I can be here in front of you today using the First Amendment to call out our government for the atrocities that are occurring in this nation. These are the people that went before us and put their lives on the line and paid with those lives so that we remain the beacon of freedom. Our government, back when it was founded, and when we stuck to the principles of the founding, was the beacon for other nations. Other nations have tried to emulate what we have done, and they have not been able to. And that is because this country was founded on individual liberty and individual freedom. It wasn't founded on a government over the people. It was founded on a government by the people, where the people were sovereign over its government. That's what these men and women sacrificed their lives for in protecting. And the fact that we are letting that be taken away from us internally is very disturbing, and it's disrespectful to the lives that were lost protecting it. So when you're doing your parties, doing your barbecues, paying 50% more than what you paid last year for these items, do a little reflection and think to yourself, are you worthy for the lives that were sacrificed for you in order to be able to enjoy the freedom that you have? I want to thank everybody that's in the chat and the conversations that we had in the chat tonight. I want to thank Val for joining us tonight. Michael, thank you. Thank you for your commentary over the Trump rally and other things that we've had tonight. We've ran a little long, but that's to be expected. Okay, our country is in distress, and if you don't see it, folks, start waking up, because the only ones that can save it is you and me, Michael, Doll, Jan, Grace, Michael, all of you. We are the ones that are going to save this country. It's not going to be government that saves us. It's going to be the people that saves us. Okay? If you're not a member of a constitutional supporting agency or organization, become one. You can become one through the Liberty First Foundation. You can find us at l1f.us or any other organization. But make sure that it is a constitutional supporting organization and not just one that thinks that the Constitution is a living document. It's not. The Constitution says what it says for a reason. And if we want to change what it says, we have a means to do so. So let's start abiding by the Constitution instead of trying to change it.
And that's a cultural shift.
Exactly.
You are instrumental in the cultural shift.
Exactly. Exactly.
Talk
We're
to your
here every
neighbors.
Friday night, 9 p.m. Eastern time. Invite everybody that you know to join us. Okay. This message is too important to keep under wraps. We've got to start doing something. Okay. And if you refuse to do something, you're a part of the problem. We'll see you next week. Thank you, everybody, and good night.